Good morning, good afternoon, or good night, depending on when you're listening to this. I hope you're having a good day today. Before we start, I just want to mention that down below in the description box, you can find a link to the original Clancy journals, as well as timestamps to each journal being read today. These are all the journals as of September 19th of 2022. Without further ado, these are Clancy's journals. 98806, Moon 18. Title: Clancy's Journal. The perplexities of the Dima horizon didn't occur to me until my 9th year. It was then I began to contemplate the existential and decide what type of impression I wanted my life to make. Naturally, to fuel my hope, I looked out upon the distance of the land that had cultivated me, only this time with a new awareness of the obstruction that my youthful ignorance had allowed me to overlook. Was it there the whole time? How had I not seen something so obvious? I'm reminded of this moment daily as the idealization directly collides with a unique hope for my own future. As a child, I looked upon Dima with wonder. Today, I am wrought with frustration as I spend each day squinting for a glimpse of the top of the looming wall that has kept us here. It was upon my 9th year that I learned that Dima wasn't my home. This village, after all this time, was my trap. Before this realization, I had a deep affection for Dima. There was a wonderful structure to the city that put my cares to rest. Streets and locations were dependable, and the responsibilities of the day seemed to be accomplished with minimal effort. Once a task was taught and understood, we delighted in our ability to complete our obligations timely and felt secure knowing tomorrow's duties would be accomplished with the same efficiency. We all worked to represent our bishop with honor and knew that each inhabitant of our region had a like-minded dedication to consistency. Keon's embodied the spirit of this dedication. One of Dima's 9 bishops, Keon's was revered as unwavering and forthright, possessing the ability to achieve focus that was rare for most on our region. We all admired him and felt honored to be inhabitants of his region. While we had heard legion of the ruthlessness of the other bishops, Keon's possessed a stoic demeanor unlike anyone I had ever met, and we were proud to serve. Clancy. 01707 Moon 07. To refer to Dima as my home has never felt accurate. Dima to me has simply been this place that I've existed, or the slot they put me in. I've heard the stories about the idea of home, and its depiction has always seemed warm from the storyteller's description. There was a romantic ownership of this place they inhabited that I admired, but could never relate to. This place, my place however, seemed devoid of the romance and the wonder that the old stories tell. But somewhere between the iron order and infallible precision of Dima, a hum of wonder exists. It's a quiet wonder that my mind tends to get lost in. This hope of discovery alone has birthed a new version of myself, a better version, I hope, that will find a way to experience what's beyond these colossal walls. 01807 Moon 01. File name E_SR_EVE_R.jpg. Backwards, the file name reads reverse, which was a clue for the click to reverse an audio file found in 01707 Moon 17 that unveiled a hidden message. That moon did not contain a journal, but 01807 Moon 01 does. A lifeless light surrounds us each night. Never could I imagine that something so luminous could feel so dark. It's this glow that reminds us of the dreamless existence we've been sentenced to. What I call a sentence, others accept as normalcy. How do they so efficiently eradicate the dreams within us? When the bishops institute vitalism as a mandate, they effectively reverse the hope that many arrived with. Am I the only one who realizes we've been lied to? Am I the only one not afraid of the notion that the 9 have hijacked our trust and extinguished the hope that once motivated our existence? We used to close our eyes and picture a better life. Now the city is full of dry eyes caught in a trance of obedience, devoid of any trace of identity. The only significant light I've seen has been in the eyes of those smeared. Such a curious sight to see those bright eyes strangled by the darkness of the bishop's hands. As their presence fades, so dims their memory of something more. My hopes of something more is all I have in this rigid tomb, and I will not let that die. 01807 Moon 05. File name _HE_A_VY_.jpg. They're asleep. The night took forever to arrive, and now we're almost ready. We studied the Watchers and know that there's no chance we can step through unnoticed. So, instead of trying to hide ourselves, we'll make sure that all of us are noticed. It's been 1 year since the last convocation, and tomorrow's annual assemblage of the Glorified will be the biggest spectacle this concrete coffin of a city has seen all year. If we time it right, we'll divert the attention of the Watchers and finally take a step through. We've had no contact, but we're hoping that the other side will be able to find a way in. We're not sure the breach location, but we are willing to risk being smeared in order to find it. We know that we must go lower and wait for the torches. They've never seen anything quite like this. And by morning, everything will change. I'm terrified and excited all at the same time. They don't control us. 01807 Moon 08. File name _note.gif. I've made it out. I feel weightless. I know that police always held me down, but for the first time, I can feel the levity that I had hoped for. It's been 3 nights now, and my breathing has changed. It's slower and more full. It's like the air out there is worth taking in. I can see it back in the distance, and I'd be lying if I said that it wasn't constantly in my mind. I wish I could turn that fear off, but maybe the further I go, the less that fear will affect me. I feel betrayed by what I assumed was home. If I ever ended up back there, I won't be able to look at it the same way. They are asleep. They are so sure they know the truth, and they carry on throughout their day with the same meaningless tasks. They've forgotten to look up and to look outward, to understand that this isn't about in there, it's about out here. This new world surrounds me. I used to think the walls back home were massive. These green cliffs engulf me and place me right in the middle. The trench is quite precarious at times. It's easy to grow weary, but it's real and it's true, and I'd much rather endure reality than to mindlessly be obedient to a life that someone else has created for me. I've obsessed about this world for so long that it feels more like home than anything I've experienced. Somehow, in this vast openness, I feel more protected than ever. The landscape feels endless, and I found myself walking for hours without any true evidence of getting further down. But I've seen plants and colors out here that I'm not sure I've witnessed before. There's a beauty in the strangest places, and the curiosity of what's next continues to motivate me. I wonder who else is out here. If what I assumed inside is true, there's gotta be more like me. Sometimes I feel a presence, or think I see something in my periphery, only to look up to see nothing. It's just another thing that I'm afraid of that also excites me. It all just confirms all of the things that I had hoped to be true for all of this time. I am out here, and I am very alive. I'm sometimes scared, but always discovering something new, and I will not stop. Cover me. 01807 Moon 18. File name unalone.gif. I can't believe what I just saw. I'm still trying to understand. This whole time I was sure I was alone, a single soul in this vast unknown world. But a few days into this trek, I looked down to see a figure headed the same way I was. I tucked myself between these caves and crevices, trying my best to keep hidden, but he was out in the open, making his exhausted journey right down the middle of trench. I was curious enough to follow alongside the path with him. He seemed unaffected by the fear of the unknown, the fear that tends to cripple me. To him, the terrain seemed familiar, as if he had been out here before. While lost in my curiosity, they appeared. I had heard about them back in Dima, but to my knowledge, these stories were merely a myth. 10, 20, what seemed like 100 banditos appeared upon the cliff, all looking down at him. He only stopped a moment to look back up at them. They continued his way. His energy changed, and I wasn't sure if he was frightened or encouraged by their ominous presence. They warned him of what was about to come. It was a blur, first seeing the figure, then the banditos, only to have my eyes open to the oncoming bishop on the white horse drawing closer in the distance. The figure halted and waited. When the bishop stopped, I was sure he looked up directly at me, so I hid deeper back in the cave. The presence of the robed rider seemed to paralyze the man. He stood still as he was approached, powerless as the outstretched hand smeared his neck. I had never seen Bishop possess power like this. Keon's always seemed gentle and warm. This Bishop, at least out here, seemed like something else. So I ran, and I've been running for as long as my legs and lugs can handle. Maybe this note will be my proof of that what I witnessed was not a dream. A million questions raced through my brain. Am I not the only one traveling through Trench? I'll travel a little further and maybe get a moment of rest tonight. I may have made a mistake leaving. This spot between two places is beginning to feel like an endless and hopeless abyss. At least Dima is a place that I know, and at times like this, I miss a lot about what I know. This will all be much tougher than I imagined. Nothing out here is familiar. I've witnessed the presence of others for the first time today, and I feel more alone than ever. Cover me. 01901 Moon 22. File name 17-35.4527.jpg. I can't face this page for long enough to write what I'm truly feeling. I'm only wrought with more questions about what I assume to be true, questions about what my own path is, and the question has plagued me every night that I lie here, back in the city. Did I give up? The force I saw between him and his bishop seemed tense to me and frightening, but the memory of that exchange has had time to fester and replay in my mind long enough that I'm questioning if I even remembered it correctly. I assumed the bishop was forcefully retrieving his subject, but now I wonder if the bishop was actually trying to save him and he refused. I stayed out there for 5 days after I watched what happened. I haven't seen him since. Maybe he got away and was still out in Trench with me. Maybe the bishop chased him down and brought him home. Home? Did I just call this place home? After all the endless beauty I saw out there, am I now convincing myself that I am actually better off within these confines? I admit, it was more difficult than I expected. Nothing could have prepared me for how much unknown can consume me. Vast landscapes and endless possibilities, yet coupled with an endless danger. I became anxious. I became tired. I became hungry. Every step I took became harder than the last, jumping from jagged rocky step to step or pulling myself through thick forest. It all became debilitating, and I was sure that I couldn't go on. Keons approached me as the sun rose one morning. I wasn't scared. I was relieved. After all that he had taught me, his presence was the most comforting moment I had had in days, and I couldn't help but be happy to see him. In true Keon's fashion, he wrapped his arms around me, and then put his hands under my face, looked at me in the eyes, and he said, "Clancy, child, let's go home." I've been here for a few weeks now, and while the routines of this world are comforting, and certainly easier than life out there, my mind keeps bouncing between the two places. Which one is home? Are the bishops protecting us and the torches on the hilltop dangerous? Or is it the other way around? My dreams pull me from world to world, and I feel lost between all of it. There's so much I do not understand. Clancy. 02203 Moon 17. Title: isolated. I haven't had the ability to write what seems like a lifetime. This deprivation is what weighed on me the most, not the lack of food or change of scenery. They wouldn't let me write anything down. Well, at least not without them present. I remember that day vividly. First, they let me out. Even though the hallway was still gray and drab, the new experience was a shock to my system, significantly different than the usual captivity. I tried to match the rhythm of the nameless guard's footsteps as we echoed down the long corridor. I followed close behind him as if I had a choice. Cold concrete encapsulates us and seems to cast a spell of synthetic calmness. Obedience. We arrived at a blue door. It was an odd contrast to this concrete maze. As I went through the doorway, I found myself in another typical gray Dima room. The only difference was who was waiting for me. 4 of them. 3 of them were unknown to me, but one was clearly Keon's. I knew his voice. They proposed an idea, a television show or whatever it was. I had no idea that I was known outside of my cell, but they informed me that I had garnered notoriety for my schemes and outbursts. They wanted to use my face for the benefit of the city. They handed me a pen, a familiar instrument, yet they must be present when I use it. They wanted to manage my imagination and vision. Although shackled, at least I could create again. Thus began the sessions. Every day my cell door would open. I followed the guard down the familiar hall through the blue door to sit down at the desk and chair, my designated creative space perfectly centered under their watchful eye. Sometimes 3, sometimes 8. Not once were all 9 present. He was never there. I would have felt it if he was. At the end of my session, Keons would take my pen, gather my writings, and send me back. This went on for months. What were we creating? I wasn't sure. A variety show with songs and set pieces? Were the rulers of this stifled city actually attempting entertainment for its people? Everything I had created had to be for the benefit of the citizens of Dima, a phrase I heard often. I didn't question them. I was happy to be out of my cell and putting words to paper. On the final day, I wrote the last line. I was asked to name it. The question caught me off guard. This seemed like a decision they would make. Show day. They dressed me up and asked me to smile in a poor attempt at hiding my sleep deprivation. It was so colorful, as if compensating for the grayness of the city. It was a blur. Before I knew it, it was over and I was back in my cell. I can only remember fragments, only blurred hallucinations of color and chaos, like a dream. The confusion of it all hangs overhead. What was it all for? But it wasn't over. I guess it went well enough for them to request more of me. I was useful to Dima, and my creativity was exploited in new forms. They wanted me to be the entertainment for the annual assemblage of the Glorified, a performance at sea for the premier citizens of Dima. I knew those weren't the real bishops on that ship. I'll quicken the entry. I need to keep up with the torchbearer. During the performance, we were attacked by something in the water. I don't know what possessed that creature to attack, but it was odd and felt incredibly intentional. Many lost their lives in the attack, and I was thrashed through bitter cold waves, yet somehow survived. Did this icy cold preserve me? Why was I spared? I'm still so cold as I write. This place feels foreign, nothing like Trench. From the frigid sea, the air here seems somehow colder than the water that surrounds it. I have a strange feeling that this island will provide answers. I must go. 02203 Moon 18. File name 161925030811510-0/-919.jpg. The file name in alphabetic sequence translates to psychokinesis. What was this thing? This device? This gift? Some sort of neurological connection or expansion? Psychokinetic weapon? This is absurd. Why was it given to me? Why am I the only one that can wield it? Was this the reason that I survived? My mind was racing as I wait here on the rock, staring off into the darkness, waiting for our torches to be mirrored, the signal he had told me to wait for. It feels oddly familiar, not the spikes in my hands, but the power it harnesses. I felt it before. Is this also the source of those rumors that I had heard in the dark corners of the city? Legends and stories that I assumed were myth inspired by children's nightmares? Tales of what the bishops would use the bodies for? Those honorable citizens who had achieved the glorious gun, referred to as available vessels. It all begins to make sense. The episodes I would have, the blood red vision, my dreams of flying, the out-of-body account of the rider in the river, the decaying host of the television show, the robed figure that would command the doomed ship. Had we all been seized by the bishops using the same technique? Is this where their power comes from? Are they immortal or just feeding off the next body, giving their host a brief second life? Am I in my original life? Why am I available to this control? This whole time I thought I was battling my inner self. Was I actually under the assault of something else? Someone else? The small eerie island has made me a weapon. We both believe it can be used to change the momentum of this war. Now we must return to the mainland where they should be there to receive us. We will destroy and rebuild. Though it's been years since he last spoke with them, I hope they had not lost faith in the Torchbearer's plan. But how could any of this have been planned? Clancy.